Well, it is a lovely, wet day here in Kansas, and I look at this kind of day and think it might be a good time to go for a drive. This is my 2000 Honda Insight. I've had it for a few months now, and I thought it might be nice for me to walk you guys through a few of the things that have come to get on my nerves a bit. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I've actually created a playlist of all the videos of this car so you can kind of see where it came from, but the short summary is this car sat more or less abandoned in a field for about 3 years before my friend Zeph and I rescued it, put a new fuel pump in it, and got it running again, and then I bought it for just it was a Porsche 928. Huh. And then I bought it for $1,000, and I've been bringing it back up to a good daily driver status since then. And in that time, a few particular quirks about this car have just kind of set me off a little. Now, that's not to say that it's a bad car by any means. I'm just probably a bit more particular than most. One too many bumps on the head, I suppose. But let's kick the list right off with number one. The probably singular most annoying thing to me once you realize that it exists is the steering wheel. Now, it's nothing to do with the wheel itself, but rather where it's positioned relative to the seat. And another vehicle that you might be familiar with that has this problem is pretty much any Chevy truck between the year 1998 and 2019, I believe. The steering wheel is not in line with the seat. As I'm sitting here, the Honda logo is kind of hovering over my right thigh. The whole wheel is off to the right by about 2 inches for some reason. And the effect this has is I kind of subconsciously end up kind of scrunching myself over on the right half of the seat and almost sitting on the bolsters, and I have to kind of consciously remind myself, no. sit in the middle. In the Chevy trucks, I kind of understand how something like this could happen. I mean, they sort of reused the firewall from subsequent generations over and over and over again, and that's just kind of how the packaging ended up. But on a ground up, sort of engineered from scratch platform like this, I cannot understand why something like this would be the case. It doesn't seem unreasonably packed underneath the dashboard where the steering column goes, nor does it look like there's really anything in the engine bay that would interfere with having the steering wheel actually centered with the seat. But this is what Honda's given us, and it's charming, but a little annoying at times. Another slightly frustrating aspect of the Honda Insight is an incredibly common problem, a design flaw in this portion of the car. When it rains, if there's any problem with these little seals that hold some trim piece on, all the water gets directed right onto the driver's seat belt. That means if your car has been sitting out in the rain, you're going to get in and you're going to get a nice wet seat belt. It's very unpleasant, and somewhat more concerningly, that will also throw an SRS code which will disable your airbags. My car actually had one of these codes, and after hooking it up to a competent scanner, I was able to find that yes, it was driver seatbelt retractor resistance error, which was, as I read, commonly caused by either corrosion on the plug or from a mild short circuit caused by water getting into the mechanism. Super common, but there are guides on the internet on how to fix it. Personally, I just leave the car in the garage all the time. It's just easier. Something else that's curious about this car, we'll call this number, what is it, 3 now? The HVAC system is so baffling to use that there were actually dozens of forum threads I found from around the time the car came out of people asking how to use this AC system. It seems simple enough. You've got recirc, mode, auto, off, temperature dial, and an econ button. And no one could really figure out what the econ button does or how it works. And what econ does is it enables auto start stop, which you'll see right here. I come to a stop, car shuts off, but it also shuts off the blower motors. Now I can understand shutting off the AC compressor because that's driven by the engine, which is not currently running, but the evaporator core is still cold. You could still be blowing some air over that, maybe at a reduced speed, in order to keep me from absolutely dying in the heat every time I come up to a stoplight. I'd love to speak to a Honda engineer that was behind this, not to beat them up or anything, but just I want to hear the reasoning behind doing that, because I'm sure they had a very good reason. But from my perspective, that reason is just to turn me into a baked good in this oven when I'm sitting at a red light. Number 4 on my list here, one of my least favorite things, is also my favorite thing about this car, and that is the manual transmission. Manual hybrids are incredibly unusual here in the US. The only ones I can think of that we got are the Honda Insight, the Honda Civic Hybrid, and the Honda CR-Z. In other markets, there's all kinds of goofy little hybrid versions of cars available with a manual, but this is America. I guess that's just not good enough for us. But there are some problems with this manual transmission. Most Honda manuals from this era are incredibly durable. My first car was a 1998 Civic with a stick, and it simply did not care what you did to it. You could beat that shifter to death, and the transmission would happily take it and shift smooth as can be between the gears. This is a far more fragile unit. It's also cable driven instead of push rods like the older Civics. I believe this is actually a similar part to the Acura RSX, also known as the Integra in other markets. The shift action itself isn't incredibly rubbery. It's actually pretty decent and very easy to find gears on, but there's a very, very common fault with these wherein the first and second gear synchros will go bad. And as near as I can tell from looking at technical docs and various forum posts, Honda did something known as a dual cone synchronizer for the first and second gear to make shifting just that little bit easier. And apparently that design just wasn't quite up to snuff, and they go bad, and you have to double declutch, shift down into second gear and match revs like you're driving, say, Hoovie's Woody wagon and it has an unsynchronized gearbox. So it's rather entertaining, but also a bit frustrating to have to think so hard about shifting down into second because of some weird design quirk. I am told that this is fixable, simply opening the transmission, simply. Yes, it's just that easy. If you open the transmission up and take it apart, you can actually look at the first and second gear synchros and grind off 2 tabs that have to do with the dual synchronizer cones, and that will essentially turn it back into a single synchronized gearbox, or a single cone synchronized gearbox. Got to keep my terms straight. And then the synchros will just work again. And I'd love to get another transmission to try that on. I've never rebuilt a manual or anything like that, so I think that'd be a very fun experience. Unfortunately, parts for these cars are fairly tough to come across. It's not exactly something that you see in every other junkyard, unfortunately. Or fortunately, because that means they're all still out there being used. Driving around Wichita at 36 miles an hour. And last but not least, the 5th thing that I absolutely hate about my Honda Insight is the fuel economy is too good. Ah yes, funny joke, Jake, that's hilarious. You really subverted my expectations with that one, but no really. I kind of get a kick out of filling up my car. As insane as that sounds, I have an app on my phone and I use it to track all my fill-ups, and I love looking at the graphs and seeing what sort of fuel economy I've been actually getting. And this car is such a tease about that, when you can go 500 miles on a tank, and I'm not driving all that often, especially now with the coronavirus crisis. I think I've only filled this up 3 times since I bought it, and that's not enough data points for me to really figure out where I'm at. So I'm kind of deprived of the ability to really look at my fuel economy and analyze what this car is doing. And as for those numbers, my last fill up was, I believe, 54 miles per gallon, which was actually better than what the dashboard said, which is the exact opposite of what usually happens, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Right now, this tank, I'm apparently getting 52 over the course of the last 400 miles. I'm okay with that. So there you have it. That's the 5 things that I hate about my 2000 Honda Insight. But after all this, would I recommend this car? Well, that depends. If you're technical enough to fix it yourself, absolutely. Go try and find one of these. They can be found in fixer-upper shape for $1 to $2 grand, or in decent shape for $4,000. Learn how to rebuild a battery pack, and the world is your oyster for these. If you're not quite to the level of mechanical ability to be really diving into working on the engines of these, I wouldn't really recommend it as a daily driver, but I definitely suggest seeking one out and driving it. It's a very unique experience and a joyful little weird eco bubble to putter around town in. And for something that on paper seems like it should be incredibly boring with just 70 horsepower, it's an absolute joy of a little car. Thanks for watching.